Spit. I haven't even drank. And we love Charlene. We love the dolls that Miroslava does for us. And maybe someday she'll get to come again. We hope so. Anyway, this is not very much room up here.
I know.
And I ate
Too much.
too much. Charlene Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
So I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm losing my voice, as you can tell. But there's a lot of people that say thank you too. Trish Bryce, who is not here, when we first knew that we were going to Oklahoma, I told her I wanted to do Southwest. I told her I wanted to do the Prairie Girls. And she's like, I'm in. And I told her I wanted to do Indians for the centerpiece. I'm in. and so we've been working on this for a year. She has made all of the outfits for the event girls. She has made all of the pieces for the centerpiece as far as the clothing goes and the teepee. If you look at the centerpiece closely, there's a little papoose. Charlene made those. If you look, there's a prayer feathers, and Sherry Burrows, who also is sick at the moment, so she could not be here with us tonight. So they're very, very special. All the beading has been hand done, and we're really delighted with what we did. When Miroslava, when I talked to her about what I wanted, she did factory face-ups for the event duels, and then she's also did factory face-ups for the centerpiece dolls. I said, I painted all of the centerpiece dolls. And I supervised the painting on the event dolls, so to tone them down just a little bit to my style. So I hope you enjoy your dolls, and I am going to turn this over to Mary, who's going to do my story. Kathy Poppenberger wrote the story for us, which was fabulous. And all of my helpers have helped in one way or another, either making the embroideries or doing some rag dolls or whatever. We've all been a piece of this, and it's been fabulous to share with everybody. Thank you.
This is the story of Shy on the Prairie. Shy Bennett grew up hearing stories about her parents and grandparents' long journeys to the new land of America. Places so far away they had to travel by ship across the Atlantic Ocean, Scotland, Ireland, Sweden. She loved the details of their homelands. The trips were dangerous, and she admired their bravery on the rough water. Her family settled in Kentucky, building log cabins and farming the fertile hilly ground. But now it was Shy's turn for a big adventure. Papa wanted to move his family out west to the Indian Territory. Land was free to settle, lots of land, room to spread out. Stories were in all the newspapers about how the West was the place to go for a growing family. Shy, her brother Sam, the new baby mama was Carrie. Their little cabin was bursting at the seams. Papa studied the hand-drawn maps passed on from explorers who had returned from the West. Many of them offered themselves as guides. He sold his land to buy a large wagon designed for the rough trails and a team of strong, steady horses. Papa was a good farmer. He knew what was necessary to plant crops and build a shelter for his family. He and Sam packed the farm equipment, seed, rifles, spare parts for the wagon and the harnesses. You had to be ready for any kind of trouble. Shy stayed busy helping her mama gather household goods they would need. They packed food, slabs of bacon, flour, and cornmeal. Root vegetables would be cooked first so they wouldn't go bad. Mama brought bags of coffee beans and the grinder. Even children drank coffee, weakened with milk. They took bags of sugar, baking soda, and dried fruit. Shy was happy to see that Mama packed a bag of rice. Mama would cook her favorite rice pudding, her grandmother's Swedish recipe. They packed the pots, bolts of fabric, sewing necessities, bedding, and was stuffed in small places. Papa even had made room for the old rocking chair. There wasn't much room for family treasures, but Mama put a set of good clothes for each of them in the trunk, along with the family's
I didn't
Bible,
understand that.
a book of stories, and a primer. She made up a medicine chest with herbal remedies, clean rags for bandages, quinine, laudanum, and castor oil. Mama carefully put her most precious family treasures, a teacup and a small wooden tea caddy from Ireland, in the barrel of cornmeal to protect them from the bouncing wagon. Finally, she packed her rose cuttings, hoping to start a rose garden in her new home. These little touches of home would mean a lot. Shai smiled as she told her doll Rose about how they'd be called pioneers. At 12, Shai didn't play with dolls often, but she loved sharing secrets with Rose. Mama had made Rose with scraps of leftover cloth when Shai was a little girl. She was named Rose after Mama's favorite flowers. She practiced her sewing skills by making things for Rose. Her latest project was an apron with an embroidered flower on it. Mama praised her Shai's sewing skills with her tiny straight stitches. Shai was taking her sampler to work on too. All young girls made samplers to practice their stitches and their alphabet. She would be a big help to Mama sewing things for the new house. A new house would need curtains and quilts, and there were always clothes to mend. The big day finally arrived. It was early spring, but past the risk of snow. Papa had selected the day carefully, talking with many others who were headed west or had been. They needed to get to Indian Territory early enough to get crops in the ground and to build a house. Snow would delay them and make the rivers more dangerous to cross as the snow melted. Papa planned to meet up with other groups headed west. There was safety in numbers, plus each person provided skills that might be needed by all. Shai and Sam were so excited they could barely stand still. But the adults were not so happy. The children didn't realize they would never see their grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and cousins again. Their parents did. There were lots of hugs and tears. Grandmother Bennett gave Mama a tiny quilt for the new baby. Mama hugged it to her chest. Then Grandma gave Shai and Sam journals to write their own stories of their trip, much like the one she had kept on her journey across the Atlantic. She realized then that she would be leaving home and family and started to cry. Grandmother hugged her and whispered to her to be a big help to her mama. They loaded into the wagon and with tears and smiles waved goodbye to the only home Shai had ever known. Sam would fish if there was a stream. He used the line and the hooks he had brought along. If he couldn't find worms, he'd tie threads to his hook to tempt the fish. Leftover milk was placed in a churn, tied to the back of the wagon, and by the time it was shaken all day on the bouncing wagon, there was butter for the bread. Some days were bad, rain and more rain, wet clothes with no way to dry them, and no dry ones to change into. But Shai stayed positive. She tucked Rose in her carry sack to keep her dry and marched on. She was thankful when they would halt for the day to rest up, wash clothes, and bathe even, though the creek water was cold. They washed their clothes with lye soap and hung them on bushes to dry. Shy loved the sun on her face and would push back her bonnet until Mama would scold her that her pretty complexion would burn. As they got further west, they joined with more wagons. The most experienced of the group was elected leader, and he decided how far they would travel each day. They would vote on the best route based on the tips gathered along the way. Sometimes they would find signs along the trail left by earlier travelers that told them about water that was bad to drink. They knew to be careful of the water. Many people had died drinking the water without boiling it. Shy had gotten used to drinking the boiled coffee, even though it was bitter. The further they went, the more they found goods other wagons had left behind. Furniture, barrels, anything that had gotten too heavy for the horses to pull, and sadly there were many graves, most with no headstone, just a stone or a wooden board with no name. Mama would tell Shy not to look and give her an extra hug. They would say a prayer for each grave they found. Nights were livelier with the bigger wagon train. The wagons were parked in a big circle for safety. The children were free to play games like Red Rover and Jacks. The families would tell stories about where they were from. The women would share recipes and admire each other's sewing. Someone would bring out a fiddle or a harmonica, and they would sing and dance about the fire. Shy loved singing. Old Susanna and Sweet Betsy from Pipe. She showed Rose to the other girls, and they pretend to be on a fancy journey with dressy clothes and big tea parties. These times on the journey were best of all. Tiny friend. The further west they got, the land changed. Less trees, more grass, summer wildflowers everywhere. Papa told his family that meant they were getting close to Indian territory. The few towns that they came to were small with just a few buildings. Usually a few houses, a store, maybe a church and a school. Sam wanted to know how they'd know when they got to their new home. Papa had already made contact with some farmers who lived west on a town named Tahlequah. Oh, thank you. There was land around there available. Papa said once they found some land near water that no one had built on, that would be our new land. He built a sod house for the first winter and began to plow. They would all expect to help because much of them had to be done before winter. Mama was worried about Indians. So many scary stories had been told around the campfires. Papa assured her that the Cherokee who found Tahlequah were friendly to farmers. They even farmed the land themselves, had cattle, even schools. Learning about the Cherokee gave Shy's imagination room to fly in new directions. What would the Indians be like? Did they live in houses? What did they learn in school? Maybe she could find a friend. She made sure to write about that in her journal. She even drew a little picture of what she thought the Indians might live in. She added that picture to her drawing of the wagon and horses and all the pretty flowers she liked best. Shy sat with her feet in cool water of the creek. It felt good as it rippled around her toes. The creek was wide and with scrubby trees and wild plums growing around it. The land was flat with thick grass and a beautiful quilt of wildflowers. Shy twirled a little flower of red with yellow tips in her fingers. A large bird flew high overhead. It had a long scissor-shaped fan. It was a bit scary to think of all the work they'd have to do before winter, but she was determined to help. Papa hoped to have their sod house built in a week. It would be small with no windows. There would be a fireplace inside with a hole cut in the roof to let the smoke out. Papa would take the wagon apart to use the wood as needed. The wagon cover with its linseed oil coating made it waterproof would be used as a door and as the floor covering to keep out the dampness. They would sleep on the floor, but Papa promised a better house in the future once the first money crop came in and he could buy lumber. Papa had met some of their neighbors in town. They shared their useful ideas from their experiences. Shy, Mama, and Sam hoped to meet them soon. They were eager to see new faces. On a beautiful sunny day, they went to work cutting chunks of buffalo grass to make sod bricks for the house. It was hard work cutting through the thick roots to make even squares, but help was on its way. Shouts and the sounds of wagon approaching the small family. The neighbors had come to work. They brought a sod cutting plow that easily cut the sod into even bricks needed to stack. They brought gifts for the family, burlap bags to sew into a cover for the sod ceiling to keep bugs and dirt from falling, and scraps of board to build chairs. Mr. Brown had a yellow corn dog on the rope to give them, not just a pet, but it would help guard their farm. Shy and Sam were thrilled with their new dog, who loved having his long ears scratched. Most of all, they brought joy for the Bennett family, new faces, new stories, and a feeling of community. As the men went to work cutting sod, the women gathered to prepare a noonday meal. They shared gossip and assured Mama that there was a doctor and a midwife close by if she needed help with her birth. She could see Mama's relief at that news. Even more excitement with meeting Miss Sarah, who had just been hired as a teacher. She was boarding in town and using a spare room as the tiny schoolhouse. Mama was hopeful that her children would be able to continue their education. Sky loved learning. Sam not so much, but Papa explained to him that a good farmer must know how to read and figure. Two people on horses rode up to the group. Shy was surprised to see they were Indians. Mr. Brown introduced them to the Bennetts. John Braveheart and his daughter, Shia Rain, were also neighbors, good people. They had come to help with the building of the sod house. She was fascinated to meet real Indians and was amazed at how well they spoke English. The Cherokee had settled in this area many years before, so many welcomed the new pioneers as neighbors and friends. When they had been forced to move from the southeast to the Indian Territory, they brought their government and schools with them, so they knew what it was like to build homes in the new land. Shy kept moving closer to Shia Rain, who looked to be Shy's age. She hoped a new friend had showed up today. Shia Rain smiled at her and said hello. Shy smiled back, and all of a sudden they were talking nonstop. Shy admired Shia Rain's long tan dress with beaded trim with matching moccasins. She asked about how Shia Rain learned English, and Shia Rain told her about the history of the Sequoia. who developed the first written alphabet for the Cherokee. It allowed the Cherokee to convert their letters to English so they learned both languages in school. Shy wanted to know more, so she ran to get her journal, and Rain wrote down a few words in it. Her name, Shy's name, and other common words like corn and doll. Shy brought out Rose to show Shia Rain. Shia Rain opened her beaded pouch and pulled out her own doll that was made of corn husk. She was such a delicate doll but had no face. Shia asked why, hoping Shia Rain wouldn't mind the question. Shia Rain told her the story of how the corn husk doll was made by their God to play with children. When Corn saw herself in the reflection of the stream, she kept admiring herself and would forget to visit the children. After many warnings, the God took her face away so she wouldn't be distracted. So corn husk dolls do not have faces, as a reminder that no one is better than anyone else. Shia loved the story and in turn told Shia Rain how Rose had been made by her mama with fabric scraps. The girls talked about their dolls could be, and how their dolls could be best friends, and how they could share their talent for beading and sewing to make clothes for their dolls. They would have talked for hours, but were called to help prepare the food. That night, as she lay on her blanket under the stars, she finally felt at home. A new friend to share stories with, a new house going up, the excitement of a new baby soon to come. She didn't think she could be happier. She was home in the land that would someday be called Oklahoma. Special thanks to Hockenberger for writing the story.
We're waiting. We have the Meadow Yvette doll Shy. We've just heard her wonderful story, and we're just waiting for the go-ahead to open the doll. But while we're waiting, here's a COA, and this is her debut. She's a tween.
Are you ready?
Charlene's going to tell you when you can open it.
Stop that. 1, 2, 3, go!
All right, so this must be her bonnet, and I'm not going to open that. I'm going to just leave that there for now. And then the doll herself. Let's check her out. You hear the squealing? You hear the squealing? Okay. Let's see. Oh, I smell that new resin. Oh, so she's got her journal and her sampler that we heard about in the story. How sweet is that? It's like a little leather-bound journal and her sampler. And then there's her doll that her mama made out of rag scraps. How sweet. And then we've got, let's untie her. Oh, wow. All these nice extra pieces that she came with. You hear the clapping? I'm trying to savor mine, but...
Paid for a centerpiece. Has anybody paid already?
Look at her. Wow. She is gorgeous. I love the wig they chose for her. Her face sculpt is so beautiful. Meadow did such a beautiful job on her. I love the pioneer look. I'm a big American Girl Kirsten fan, so this is very much up my alley of things I love, but she is just absolutely precious. Is she not the cutest thing? Oh, wow. All right, guys, well, we're headed to the sales room after this, so I'm going to say goodbye and cut it short, but we'll see you in the sales room. Bye-bye. want to say a huge thank you to my patrons from Patreon: Lindsay S., Leah W., Doreen Z., Janice H., Mercedes W., Cindy K., Fair Sunflower, Diane B., Kelly L., Cindy L., Krista R., Victory Ron, Shorna R., Shira Star Hobby, Stephanie W., Jessica S., Ray M., Asia C., Shalane C., and Penny P. Your support means so much to me and helps me continue bringing you great Dolly content. For more information on how you can become a supporter of this channel, please see the link in the video description. Thanks for watching!